Hello, everybody. This is Showtime Nerds, and today we have an extremely special guest here. We'll tell a little story of how we met each other later, but we have Terry Blas Rivera right here with us today, and he's a writer. He's worked with Marvel. He's worked with other shows. I believe you've worked with Adventure Time and Regular Show. I saw on the internet. So he has done some work outside of the Marvel universe. He has his own line of work. He also has visual novels, as you can see, Lifetime Passes, Hotel Dare. It's amazing. Just reading his work, meeting him online, it was fantastic, phenomenal, and I can't wait to actually introduce you guys to him. So, anybody want to start with any questions? Where do we start?
You guys are going to be so disappointed. I'm not that cool.
No, I think
you're amazing in your heart.
Yeah. I was hyping you up to my friends for days. I was just telling them, like, please read, please. I love them.
You underestimate yourself. You're a pretty good writer. I started getting into the Reptile books pretty recently, and I gotta say, it's one of the best comics, and it's pretty much my first comic I read fully as well.
Wow, thanks. That's a high compliment.
Yeah, and I think my first question to you would be like, do you have any plans to continue the story with Reptile?
Oh, I mean, I have plans. I don't know what Marvel's plans are. You know, they're the ones that publish, but I do have things I would like to do with if they ask me to do more. You know, there are certain things that I think I probably would have done if the series had been a little longer. 4 issues is kind of short for a miniseries. I think they're usually like 6. So, I mean, I got to do a little bit more with taking his cousin to Strange Academy in the Marvel Voices Comunidades book. And I kind of set her up there, which was really fun, especially seeing that I think in issue 16, Eva shows up, whatever you want to call her. She shows up at Strange Academy and has like speaking lines, so you actually see her there. But yeah, there's certain things that I would do with Beto and with Julian and that I would love to do. If they want me to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, especially with Jules. I feel like even though he doesn't have any abilities like the other two, he still has a lot of potential. He's just that person that knows.
I will say, in the comic, he's very tech savvy, right? He like has computers and monitors, and he's a vlogger. He also still has that metal brace that belonged to that scientist.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I'll say.
Oh,
little hints for the
all right. I'd love to see more on that, especially since he's the guy in the chair. We'll see him in action more.
Yeah, I would like to kind of have him be like, I don't remember what, like, you know, on Kim Possible, she had like that guy that was always in the chair. It's kind of what Julian would be, I think, for a little bit for Reptile, and then later I do have ways of, I think, maybe developing him into his own hero, which I think would be cool, considering that, like, I say like a lot, guys, sorry, but in the second issue of Reptile, Julian tells Reptile, like, you're a hero. You have the ability to be a hero, and we're not seeing that. So when Julian is a character that could be given this same sort of opportunity, I think it'd be fun to have Reptile be like, well, you know, practice what you preach then.
Exactly.
Like, you can do it too. Yeah. So, yeah, that's some stuff that I would probably incorporate if I could do more.
I think that's awesome. Marvel, get on it, please. We need more of that.
I also loved that, so I wanted to include Spider-Girl in the final issue.
Yeah, I saw you. Beth was texting her,
Yeah, and so that's sort of what we landed on, because I think that she was being used by another storyline or whatever right then. But a big part of Reptile is like accepting the past and sort of like not letting it define you, just like moving on. And so in the very first page, he's like still kind of like not over his ex, and he's like looking at her Instagram and whatever. So my way of like showing that he's moved on is that like he's now flirting with Spider-Girl.
Yeah.
Because they've in the past have had sort of kind of like flirtation. So I would love like for the two of them to have an adventure together. I think that'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but anyway, that's sort of what I do.
I think that's fantastic. So,
I think that leads in directly to my next question. Is like, what other directions do you want this character to go? Comic-wise, movie-wise, show-wise? What do you want to see from this character?
Yeah, I think. Well, so when Marvel approached me to write the series, though they approached my agent asking if I was interested, and I was like, yeah. And then my second thought was like, I've never heard of this character. And I was like, how is that possible? I'm Mexican American. I love Marvel. I'm a huge dinosaur nerd. How have I never heard of this character? He should be, if that's who he is, then he should be the most popular Marvel character for kids, right? Because kids love dinosaurs and they love superheroes. And so I saw a lot of opportunities in my mind for a lot of different things. I don't know how exactly this line works, but you know the Marvel Legends action figures?
Yes.
Like, they seem to all come with, like, an extra part for someone.
Yeah.
So, like, why not just have a Reptile action figure that's just him in his suit? And then you can collect like the different dinosaur parts and like
pterodactyl
his arms off. And like you could have a divot in his back, so you could put like Ankylosaurus spines or Stegosaurus spines. Like there's a lot I think you could do with an action figure. I mean, I'm sure like little kids would probably like swallow an arm or something, but I mean, plenty of adults like collect action figures, right? Like, I mean, come on. So I think that's one cool possibility. I'm not someone who thinks that, definitely not someone who thinks that comics are like a stepping stone or a lesser medium than like TV or movies. Like, I don't think that, oh, I can't make a movie or TV, I guess I'll make it a comic. Like, comics are their own cool medium, and some stories are definitely just told better in comics. But I also know that a lot of comics are adapted into stuff now. So when I wrote the series, I tried to keep in mind, like, I want this to have the feel of like a young adult like Disney Plus series. You know, I also think that he would work great in animation. You know, just like those dinosaur transformations would look really cool, or could look, you know, cool in like a cartoon. So I see him going down a lot of different avenues. I had high hopes for, you know, like, I don't know how any of it works. They don't tell me stuff. But I had high hopes for maybe him joining the Champions team after his series. But then like that book got canceled, so I don't know. But I just saw this hilarious like scene where him and Nova and Miles are all like speaking Spanish to each other, and then like Vision like starts speaking Spanish because she's like a robot, obviously she knows Spanish. And then Kamala being like, you guys, what? I don't understand what's going on. Because like all of them would speak Spanish except her, so I thought that'd be kind of funny. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to do really cool stuff with him, and I'm just grateful I got to do it, because I come from the point of view, especially with a lot of my independent graphic novels, that you know, the Latina, Latinx community is the largest ethnic minority group in the United States, and we have the least amount of representation across the board in films, movies, and TV, and comics. And so I just felt like I really wanted to do something and be able to create new Mexican superheroes for Marvel. There are plenty of Mexican superheroes in Marvel. I did a whole art series of like Mexican Marvel characters. Here it is. There's like these sketches that I did, like Richter and Locust and Living Lightning and, you know, Robbie Reyes, Skin. There's like a whole bunch of them. But if we don't use them, then like, what's the point? So I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to have like a Latino Avengers group. That'd be kind of fun.
That'd be fantastic.
Because there's plenty of characters I think that need to be utilized. It doesn't serve, I think, comic companies to create new, diverse, you know, sets of characters just for them to be forgotten. So, yeah, I try to like represent the best I can, and I would say 99% of my work features Latinx or Mexican characters. Ava came about strictly because I know that the fastest growing demographic in the United States is the college-educated Latina. And I was like, well, she's got to be smart and already taking college courses and teaching herself magic. So that's kind of, you know, where she came about.
Honestly, that makes me so happy, makes me so excited for what could come on next. Because, again, I am Dominican, so there's a world of Hispanic characters that are completely forgotten, right? And there's a lot of strong Mexican characters. Like, for example, Robbie Reyes, he has a Dodge Charger, and he's one of the dopest Ghost Riders there is. And there's not much of him outside. He was in Marvel
He was in
Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Shield.
right?
Yeah. He was in Marvel Agents of Shields, but he was cut down after that. And it's just, and Reptile also appeared in Marvel Superhero Squadron, the old cartoon. I think it was in 2009. And there's small appearances, but then they never get their own movie series. They never get something to show how cool these characters are.
Well, and look at how embraced the new Miss Marvel was. You know, she had her own comic. People loved it, thought it was really cool. Now she's got her own Disney Plus series. Same with Miles Morales. He doesn't have a long history in comics. He's still fairly new, comparatively so. So I think that you know, if we create these characters that feel more representative of us, that I think people who enjoy those stories need to be very vocal about wanting more. Because like before the pandemic, I think 25% of all movie ticket sales every weekend were purchased by the Latinx community. So that's an entire quarter of the movie-going market that we are supporting, that we are going to see movies of and see stories about characters who often don't sound like or look like us. So I think the risk is that the people in charge could say like, well, we already have your money. Like, why would we change anything? Why do we need to represent you more when you already buy our stuff? And I think all we can do to combat that is show them that they can make more money if we support those stories and those things a lot more.
I think it's also I think it's pretty important to bring just different cultures into any universe or any comic book you're trying to bring, because it makes the world more realistic, you know? You can't just say it's like, oh, there's one major like ethnicity and it's just like, all right, well, where's everyone else? Because
yeah, that's why I was like, Reptile's going to take place in LA, and I'm sorry, but there are more Latinos in LA than there are white people. Yeah. So when I see a TV show about LA and there's like no Mexicans anywhere, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this like some multiverse world where there's no Latinos? And I think what you're saying is totally right. Like, didn't Stan Lee say that Marvel, you know, works because it's supposed to be representative of the world outside your window?
Exactly.
So the world outside my window isn't just like super white. I mean, it is in Portland, but
this is my favorite like cover for Reptile, and it shows his Aztec and Mayan culture in there. It just shows what he's meant to represent, and I honestly love how you and your team work to make sure the characters feels unique and realistic to his ethnicity. And we definitely have to see more. We have to see a lot of characters that have been put in the shadows to come back and take over. We saw how Shang-Chi took over the cinema. We saw how Black Panther took over the cinema. I know thousands of other comic book lovers want a Miles Morales movie or just a show. So we know characters from different ethnicity that need to shine. They need a spot.
Yeah. Are you telling me that if they made a Miles Morales like movie or Disney Plus TV show or something like that, it wouldn't do great? Like Into the Spider-Verse, it was like one of the most well-respected, you know, well-liked animated movies. So yeah, I agree. I think that stuff just needs to get made. The team that I worked with was so great. Need was amazing. He did the pencils, and one of my editors, Lauren, she's Latina, you know, as well. So it felt nice. I know that there's the only other gay Mexican guy on YouTube who makes like Reptile hate videos because he doesn't like how gay and Mexican the book is. And I'm like, I'm sorry, are we done? Like, did we get enough representation? And I understand on some level, there's one comic in a long time ago where Humberto says, he's like, why do I have to be a Mexican superhero? Why can't I just be a superhero? And if you read the book, that's what Julian tells him. He's like, because you have to be a Mexican superhero first. If we don't have any we can point to and be like, he's Mexican, he's amazing, he's awesome, he stands for me. Once we have that, then we can like have other Latino heroes who don't have to talk about that all the time. But until we have one who's like, I'm standing up for Mexicans, these are my people, you know, then I think we do need that. So he can think that in the past, but then I think Julian telling him like, what are you doing? Like, I don't care if Kamala's law is illegal. You know, slavery used to be legal. It's still legal to be gay in some places. Like, it's not the point. Like, you can make a difference and you're not doing it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And with superheroes, a lot of things that people subconsciously do is they view themselves as the superheroes. So I know a lot of black folks that they read either Miles Morales or they see in any form of media, they see themselves as Miles Morales. They see what they could be. And so us Hispanic people, we lack that. We look at the screens and we see white heroes, we see black heroes, very minimal Asian heroes, and we just don't have someone to be like, oh my god, that is me right there. That's who I want to be.
Not even just like superhero stuff, right? Because if we see Latinos represented in TV and media, it's 9 times out of 10 not a very positive portrayal of a person. They're like criminals or drug addicts or the drug addict's girlfriend. You know, like, so that's why I loved Reptile's character, because I was like, oh, his parents are paleontologists. That's really cool. You know, and I don't think we see, clearly there's a lot of Latinas in college. It's the fastest growing demographic, but I don't think we see too many college educated Latinos on TV in positions of like science or positions of authority, or, you know, so I think that was important to show. And I wanted to show that scene at the top of issue 2 where he's on a dig with his parents and he gets to see them working and what they do and talking about their culture and how important it is to share that with the world. So, yeah.
I think a good example about this that Grimm talks about us all the time is Tom Hardy's portrayal of Bane. And while, you know, like, Grimm loves him and everything, he was just like, why couldn't it be... Like, I'll let Grimm explain, because I know if he hits hard on this.
Alright, so, Bane is one of my favorite, just, villains in general. He's fantastic because he shows brains and bronze. He's usually in cartoons and movies he's portrayed kind of dumb, but in the comics he's supposed to be the opposite of Batman. He's what Batman could have been if he let the shadows take over. And so I love that the main thing about Bane is he's a luchador. He has that whole Caribbean, you know, Mexican, Cuban, Dominican, Puerto Rican sort of like trail line of who he could be. There's never a specified location for him, but you still feel that Caribbean Hispanic, that accent, that luchadorness, that real authentic Caribbean Hispanic type of culture. And the problem is when they finally brought him as a smart person, they took away the whole Hispanic. They took away that whole luchador aspect of him. They brought a white person and quote unquote said that he's from the Mediterranean, but they took away 2 cultures that they were sort of trying to represent. So it hurt me. It almost was a shock to me that, oh, you Hispanic people can't be this smart, awesome version of Bane because your accents aren't good enough, your faces aren't, and I felt hurt.
Yeah, there's a great quote from Salma Hayek who talked about like when she was auditioning for roles towards like the beginning of her career and whatnot, that quite often she was told like anytime she auditioned for a woman who had any kind of wealth or was in a position like a good job, that the note came back to her like, oh, but she's Mexican, and with that accent nobody's going to believe it. It was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, and she's like, as if there are no accents out in the world. And I admire her kind of spirit, because she would tell people, she's like, I'm sorry, this was a while ago, but she's like, aren't we living in the age where Arnold Schwarzenegger is the governor of California? So like, I don't want to hear you say anything about my accent, like, as if there are no accents out in the world, right? Like, so yeah, I think that's sort of what that's maybe unintentionally saying is, well, you know, as if we cast Bane, then we can't cast someone with a Hispanic accent. Who would believe that? You know, and that's just furthering, I think, the racism. I mean, that's a whole Christopher Nolan conversation that a lot of people get into. So, but yeah, I agree with everything you just said.
But before we go anywhere else, I think it's time to give a little introduction how you and I met. Because it might have been 2 whole different perspectives. I know that once I found out that, so I know of Reptile because of the Superhero Squadron. I used to watch it when I was younger. So when I read his comics and I learned more about him, I remember saying, wow, this is a hero I feel connected with. I looked like him when I was younger. I had the sort of like the buzz cut, but it was like semi long and wavy curly, but it's still like, so I was like, I look like him, and he's Hispanic, someone that speaks Spanish. This is awesome. And I used to be, so you know how kids are either car or dinosaurs and stuff? I was a dinosaur kid. I had so many dinosaurs. And so later on, life passed and there was no more Reptile. He was just in a few issues, but it wasn't anything too crazy. And I saw in my Google just Terry Blas right here writing a new solo series for Reptile. I went crazy. I was like, no way! Finally, it's about goddamn time. Holy shit, it's here. So I went everywhere to find out who Terry Blas is, and I found out that you had a Twitter. So like my my stubborn little self, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna text him and I'm gonna tell him how great this is and how happy I am for it. And I texted him on Twitter, and crazy enough, I was not expecting this. He responded to me. He was actually happy that I reached out to him, and I went crazy. I told my mom, I told my friends, I told everyone. I was like, there's no way. I actually talked to the writer of one of the characters that I personally love and feel connected to. So I went crazy. I felt like a fanboy just geeking everywhere. And later on, fast forward to now, we have the podcast, and I was like, I know someone, and I would love to actually get to meet him face to face. I would love to finally bring him out and get to have a conversation with him. And the moment I asked and you said, yeah, I also geeked out again, because it just, it's amazing to me. Your work for me is awesome. You told me about your books. I've read them. I'm almost finishing Hotel There. I've been busy because of college, but I finished them. I've been reading, taking notes, and I just think it's amazing. It is a wonderful world that you create.
Thanks. I appreciate that. When Reptile came to me, I was kind of surprised. It was a big goal of mine to work for Marvel because I've loved them since I was a kid. But I always thought that like maybe when I'm 85, they'll come to me and and be like, "Hey, do you want to write something?" But it didn't quite feel. It still doesn't kind of quite feel very real. Like, it feels like it's happening maybe to someone else, if that makes any sense. So when someone reaches out to me like, hey, I really liked Reptile, I don't have any reason to not be like, that's awesome, cool, thanks, I appreciate it. Like, thanks for reaching out. And because the bulk of my work is writing, like I started out in comics drawing, I have an illustration degree, but now the bulk of my work is like scripting graphic novels and whatnot. So a lot of my other work, like Hotel Dare and Lifetime Passes, is super important to me. Both of those books were drawn by Claudia Aguirre, she's like, I call her mi hermana mexicana because we talk every day, and we're very close, and she lives in Mexico. But yeah, I just love that I'm able to kind of do that for a living. I'm very grateful for it, and I'm glad that people respond well to it, I guess.
I definitely love the work. I've been telling them, just read. It's.
I remember the day that he tells me this. I don't even know if it was the exact day, but I think he was just telling people. He's just like, "Well, look, see this guy created my favorite character." He's just he texted me back, and he was just, he was just going crazy about it. And I was just like, at the time, I was just like, "Man, that's sick. That's cool." But I didn't know the extent of what was gonna happen. And then he tells me a couple, 2-3 months ago, about him joining the podcast. I'm like, oh, this is coming to my reality. This is insane. Oh my god. So yeah, that was definitely just like really cool.
Yeah, I remember the message he sent when he said like you followed him back on Twitter. Like he literally put all caps like as soon as you followed him back, he's like, dude, he just followed me. Like he just put it like all on group chat. It was so
I appreciate that, but I'm just me. You guys, like, I wake up at like 6. I feed my dog. I take him out so he can go to the bathroom. I start my work. I try to go to the gym in the afternoon. I make dinner for my husband and I, and then we like watch TV, go to bed. It's like not a very glamorous life, especially since I don't really, with the pandemic, do conventions and much traveling and whatnot anymore. But like, yeah, I don't know. I appreciate that. It feels really great to think that, anyone responded to my work positively. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're just chatting among friends right now. So
There you
Um, well, for me, it's just usually they say never meet your heroes. And like I told you, I fell in love with Reptile the moment I saw him in the show. So seeing someone bring out somewhat of a shared Hispanic culture, and of course the Mexican culture, the Aztec Mayan culture, all that I could somewhat relate to or know about and understand, all that Spanish in comics, it almost felt like someone was listening to me. And when it comes to, as a person that's been loving superheroes since I was a kid, being listened to was crazy. And for me, I don't say I have a lot of heroes, but if I have to be honest, you're probably one of them. Out of the 1, 2, or 3 that I have in general, you're one of them. Just because even though you're making change, because let's be honest, sure, some people are not used to Hispanic characters yet, but you brought him. You gave him a story that was actually good, and it focused on not only the culture aspect, but a good plot and storyline that other people from other cultures could relate to. And seeing someone care so much for content, bring it to life, put it in a platform that a lot of other fans have, and then just be chill about life. Just say, hey, you're a person just like me. I am not afraid to talk to you. I think that's more valuable than meeting anybody else who doesn't care at all for who you are.
yeah, I think. But thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I think that by default, if I do conventions, I meet a lot of people, right? And I've gone to conventions, like other kinds of conventions and stuff too, where I met people that I really admired or looked up to, and most of the time they're great and it's a nice experience. But when there's one that's like not cool to you or mean to you, it kind of ruins it a little bit. And then you're not as, I guess, invested in that person's work or in knowing them or following them or whatever. So I try my best to remember that, like, the ones that have been kind to me or nice that I've met, who I look up to, when I'm met with kindness from them, then it's almost like a validation that, like, yeah, I like their work and they're a good person kind of thing. Not that we know each other like super well. But that's why I try my best to, like, when someone reaches out or when I meet someone, to just be kind and be open and to listen to what they're telling me, because I feel like, I'm going to get real deep, guys. I feel like what you're saying is that when you see someone like Reptile, you're excited, right? Because you feel, even though he's not, say, Dominican, there's still lots of similarities that you see in him to you. So you feel reflected back, or you feel represented, right? And when I started learning how to construct a story, I pitched Hotel Dare, and when I pitched it to this company, to Boom, the editor said, okay, so what's it about? And I was like, oh, it's about these, like, 3 kids, and they get sent to live with their, like, creepy grandma in a disgusting hotel that she owns, and they find out that every room in the hotel leads to a different magical world, and that she, like, probably doesn't own that hotel by coincidence. And she's like, cool, what's it really about? And I was like, oh, what? She's like, what's it really about? And I was like, oh, she's asking me, like, what the theme of this book is, right? And I was like, oh, it's about how family are people who treat you like family. And she was like, cool, let's do it. I was like, what? And so that was really interesting to me, because what that told me was stories aren't plot and event. They're not like, this happens, and this happens. That's obviously in a story and it's important. But that taught me, at least in my opinion, that stories are emotion, right? So if you think about a show or a TV show or a movie or a book or a comic, whatever, that you really like, that's like your favorite, you identified with it for some sort of emotional reason. You either felt like you either felt represented, you either felt like you could relate to that character, or you went on this emotional journey with them and thought it was great, which tells you that that's something that you can relate to or want to relate to. So that what that says in my mind is that the function of a story isn't just to entertain us, it's to help us feel seen and less alone in the world. So when we don't see ourselves reflected back in characters and in stories, the message that we're getting is that we don't exist. And when kids can't see themselves and adults can't see themselves represented in that way, it's much harder for them to think like, oh, I could be that, or I could do that. You know, it takes a lot longer to get to that point, rather than just seeing like, oh, cool, there's a Latino doctor on this show, or there's a Latino artist on this show. I could do that too. You know, I think that's, to me, why I really enjoy storytelling. If you think about Reptile, what it's really about is several things, but family, not staying stuck in the past, and representation. Those are like the three things that it's actually about. Sorry, that was a long rant.
No,
That was perfect.
I actually wanted to bring it up something else because you said that you started out as like sort of like an artist, but then also learned how to just write a story as well. As someone who's really trying to just, you know, write out his own stuff and like kind of a process, what was your process that you learned throughout your experiences to help build a story out the way you wanted it?
Yeah, so like I said, I got an illustration degree. I'd always loved drawing, and I started working in comics doing covers and some interior sequential page work. But like when you mentioned earlier, like Adventure Time, that was my first comic cover. I did regular show, I did like Rick and Morty covers. But after a while, I started feeling like, oh, when you draw comics, when you draw like the actual stories, you have to be able to draw everything, like whatever's in the script. And I don't want to draw like bikes and cars and buildings. If someone was like, do you want to draw Spider-Man? You got to draw him swinging through Manhattan above all these skyscrapers. I'd be like, oh, no, no, I don't want to do that. So I thought, well, if I want to work in comics, like what can I do? What am I good at? I would have tried and struggled to draw comics. And I think my art's decent, but I like drawing people and portraits, right? So I was like, well, I started drawing when I was a kid and making up my own stories because that was the best way I had to like bring my characters and my stories to life. So the core of that is really storytelling. But I was, I finished art school, I was in debt, and I was like struggling and doing art. And I thought, I should try my hand at writing. Because I was like, well, what are my strengths? So I was like, I'm a very organized person. I'm a motivated person. I love structure. I love creating characters. So it seems like I could do this. But I was like, I can't go back to school. I can't go back and study English and creative writing. Like, how do I do this? So while I was drawing, I had been listening to like podcasts or watching movies that I'd seen a million times. And I was like, I can utilize my time better while I'm working. So I looked up every single YouTube clip I could find on how to write comics, on structuring stories, on how to write screenplays. And I found some really great series on YouTube all about it. And I started making connections between things that I heard in multiple videos. And then some of those videos led me to some great books. Like one that I read was called The Anatomy of Story. And that one was really great. And I felt like I had just kind of started. I made YouTube my college, like my second college. And the recommendations that were given to me, I sought out. I felt like I studied it. And then when I pitched my first graphic novel, it's called Deadweight. It's like a teenage murder mystery at a fat camp. When I pitched that book, and they said that they would publish it, they were like, cool, 170-page book. And I was like, oh, I can't picture that in my head. I don't know how to like structure that and write that. And this is what I suggest to a lot of the comic students that I teach. is I say, I thought to myself, I can write a 10-page story. I can do that. That's like a digestible amount that I can visualize. And I was like, well, what if I then say, okay, this book is 17 chapters and each of them is about 10 pages, and I just do it chapter by chapter. And that allowed me to write it in a way where I felt like I could visualize it. I ended up making these sheets that, like, hang on, I think I have them right here, that I use in like every project that I write. They look like, they just have rectangles on them. Mm-hmm. And there's like 22 of them on here. And this is so I can see a bird's eye view of like a whole issue. So I know like that this is going to be a splash page, or this one's going to, like, I don't draw on these, I just write what I think goes in there. And they help me see how much space I have for the beginning, the middle, and the end, which isn't always the same. It can shift a bit. But sometimes I just write, like on page 6, I'll write fight scene and then an arrow all the way to like page 8 or 9. But that's what I started doing. And I started really thinking about themes and stories and the kinds of stories I wanted to tell. And the kinds of characters I wanted to include. And that's mostly queer people and Latinos. And yeah, I think that a lot of people say when you get an idea, you should write it down and you should, keep it in a book. And I do that sometimes with like my notes app. But I feel like if you get an idea and it's really good, it's gonna kind of stick in your brain. You'll like keep thinking about it. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, it's a long, like I could tell you a whole
No, I think you just gave me a crash course on everything. I'm taking it all in. It's really good.
So I'll tell you this. What helped me the most with constructing and writing a story is I approach everything from the character point of view. And all I do is start answering a ton of questions. And this came to me through, I took a costume design course in my first year in college. And the professor, she gave me this list that was literally like, how much money does this character have? Where did they grow up? How many siblings do they have? And so answering those questions sort of creates this almost like psychological profile of like, oh, okay, well, if this person has this much money, they've obviously never done these things in their life, unless XYZ. If they have like 7 siblings and they're right in the middle, they might kind of feel like they're, like flying under the radar or getting lost in the shuffle or whatever. So answering all those questions really helps me. And when I had the idea, I had an idea that I wanted to do a story sort of like Narnia, because I like those stories where, like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Narnia, where kids get sent to live somewhere else. And I had this idea about these 3 kids that get sent to live with their creepy Mexican grandma in a gross hotel. And that was kind of it. That's all I had. And then I I had continued over the years to watch Star Trek like every night before I go to bed. And I thought, oh, okay, on Star Trek when there's a problem, there's this formula of like, there's some sort of science-ish explanation of what the problem is. And then they spend the rest of the episode trying to figure out how to solve it, and then give you this technobabble explanation of how they solved it at the end, right? And I went to like the Harry Potter Leavesden Studios tour in England with my husband, and I was like, around the same time that I was like really binging Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, when a wizard has a problem, he just like waves his wand and like a spell and it's done. And I thought, oh, so what a spaceship needs is a wizard. They like Star Trek would be wrapped up in like 2 seconds if they had a wizard on that spaceship, right? And then I was like, well, how do I get a wizard on a spaceship? I was like, okay, well, obviously one's fantasy, one's sci-fi. They probably have to go through a portal. And I was like, well, where would there be a portal? And then I thought, oh, I have this other story about this old lady who has a hotel. And that's a lot of rooms. And rooms have a lot of doors. And that's what portals are. So I then combined those 2 ideas and suddenly had this one idea of a fun adventure story. So answering those questions about like, well, how do I get a wizard on a spaceship? Oh, portals. Well, where are there a lot of portals? Like, like just continuing to be curious and ask yourself these questions and sort of come to a conclusion or answer. That helps me construct a story almost more than anything.
Nice. All right. Good to know. I feel like for me, the best type of story is that what I read is like sort of like, or create, it's like sort of the things that are just unexpectedly good when you mash them together.
Yeah.
Right? And there's been a lot of times when I was growing up as a kid when I watched the Adventure Times cartoons, and when it turns from like sunshine and rainbows, and then it's just like, I'm gonna face the embodiment of death. You know, I was just like, okay, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
And it's like sort of those stories that really stay in your mind and really help you not only develop your taste, but also help develop sort of what you want to put in your own stories.
Yeah, I think that's important. I remember in art school, like we had to create this like inspiration board of the things that had inspired us and you know, brought us to the point where we wanted to make art and stories. And if I think about a lot of the stories that I grew up loving, I can see a through line into my work that, you know, there's lots of similarities between those and between my stuff, because you can't help but be inspired by, you know, the things that you experienced growing up.
So I have a question on the topic of inspiration, because something I noticed about Reptile too is I don't know if you know, but he resembles a lot Ben 10. And I grew up on Ben 10.
I love Ben 10, man.
Yeah, so seeing this character who's this teen who's given power beyond his imagination. Ben 10 had the Omnitrix, Reptile had the gem that comes from the planet of the dinosaurs, and having that power that's beyond their imagination, and them both just wanting to be teens but having the responsibility of heroes. I wonder if you took inspiration for that, or it just so happens that both stories sort of tell that same feeling.
I don't think I've ever seen a full episode of Ben 10. I think does he have this is what I know. Can he turn into like 10 different aliens?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It
Progresses,
it sets of 10.
Okay.
That he gets throughout the show.
And he has a sister named Gwen?
Yes.
Cousin.
Is she called Gwen 10?
Cousin.
So okay, cousin.
The thing is, their last name is Tennyson. Funny enough, even
Gotcha.
he gets and then he has an enemy who later becomes a friend, Kevin Levin, which is just funny play on numbers and last names.
Gotcha. Okay. So the answer is no. That was not an inspiration. Something for me that was a huge inspiration that like I imprinted on in a obsessive way when I was a teenager was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So the idea that there's this kid who has a ton of responsibility, doesn't want anybody to know about it, and has to save the world when they just want to be a teenager, that I think is a kind of subconscious inspiration all the time in my work. So I don't think you were probably expecting that, but Ben 10 sounds really cool. I think it's just a cartoon that that passed me by because I was like, I don't know, busy, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a couple different versions of it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there's so much on Ben 10. It's still going on today, but it's different from the original.
So I was in Austin, Texas for like this Latinx BIPOC comics conference, and I got the opportunity to see all of these historical comics from the 60s, 70s, 80s, from like Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. It was awesome. And in the hallway leading down to this like archive were all of these student photos from student trips, the trips that students had taken. And one of them was like in the Philippines, and it was a field and like workers and whatnot. And there was a kid holding all of this like stuff that I guess they just like cut from a field. And the kid was wearing a t-shirt that said Ben 10 on it. And I was like, look how universal and like, you know, some stuff just becomes. I mean, that may have just been his shirt, but that kid could also have loved Ben 10.
Yeah. I mean, I think me and Grim are just a sucker for transforming characters, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And honestly, in the so when you read Reptile, his gem changes color, which is also something that happens a lot in Ben 10. Like for example, here when he's actually transforming, you see the electricity from the power. And so the Omnitrix does that too once he transforms. Cool. So I was just like, holy shit, there's so many similarities, and it's so cool because I love both of these characters. The only big difference is that I relate more to one because I actually get to speak the same language. I get to somewhat look the same.
And so I think that if you can see how Ben 10 has had several or a couple, whatever, different series, and they've been decently successful, then isn't that proof that like a Reptile series would be just as cool, do just as much? Like, I think that's, I don't know, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're planning on.
I tried to include as many fun and weird like dinosaur transformations as I could, because I thought if people are either picking this up because they like his character because they're Latino too, or because they like his character because he can transform into dinosaurs. Both are valid. That's great. But I thought the dinosaur transformations that I'd seen him have, in some of them in the comics, were like, I'm going to turn into a badass T-Rex and like rip someone's head off, or I'm going to turn into a Triceratops or a Stegosaurus. Those are like pretty well-known dinosaurs. And I was like, his transformations, in my opinion, need to, in this book anyway, be useful, for like what they're going through, and fun, and hopefully one or two could be like emotional, so that you like feel this sense of pride and awesomeness when he finally turns full dinosaur, right? Because like that's one of his limitations. So in that panel you just showed, I have him turning into like, it's called like an Amargosaurus, but it's just a long necked dinosaur with spines on it, so that they can like climb up him like a ladder to get over this wall, and there's one dinosaur, I'm not sure, but I think I'm the first writer to give him feathers, because when he breaks into that mansion, he turns into a Therizinosaurus, which has the sharpest claws of any dinosaur, but its arm is fully feathered. Yeah. And then if there's like a short story told in like 4 panels that I put on my Twitter a while back that sets up his final dinosaur transformation. In like issue 1, he's mad about his parents and about how his family assumes that they're dead, and his grandpa is playing this like dragon video game. And then in issue 2, his parents talk to him about being proud of being Mexican, and how his mom's favorite dinosaur is this Quetzalcoatlus, which is named after an Aztec god, right? Yeah. In issue 3, he's looking at that app, and you can see that he's just looked at that dinosaur. And then in issue 4, when he turns full dinosaur, he becomes that dinosaur that was his mom's favorite, not just because it was her favorite, but because it's a moment of like Mexican pride, right? So Julian telling him like, maybe instead of trying to like resist turning into a full dinosaur, you should embrace the fact that you can do it. Like, you're not your body, you're inside your body. So just think about that. So he was able to then turn into that, and I hope that that was the through line that people, I guess, kind of saw and enjoyed, but I don't know. I think you'd have to kind of maybe read all 4 pretty quickly in succession, like in the trade, to maybe get that, because if you're looking at, like, I think it was 2 months between issue 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So, whatever. But yeah, hopefully that comes across.
It definitely went across. Me reading in a short span of time recently, it did come across, and I really enjoy that. A small little arc for him, learning about it. And also, not only that, I like how you play all these themes into these one storyline, and it all casually fits. I think that what got me more connected to the comic and wanted me to read more of it.
Yeah, I feel like each issue should sort of stand on its own and have a little bit of difference, so that when you think about them, you can think, oh, that's the one where they break into the mansion, or oh, that's the one where they have the celebration at the park. But it needed to also feel like one cohesive story that, like you said, that's kind of like casually put together. So I hope, like I said, I hope I did that, but I don't know. I guess you told me that I did, so I'll take that.
You perfectly did it. You did
Thanks.
it amazing.
I personally wanted to ask you about the I wanted to ask you about the art style you chose for Reptile. Where you actually did you have any previous like suit styles that you had in mind, or was this the like the one and done, like this is based off of like how it was previously, so let's keep it that way, or do you have other ideas for it?
His new suit?
Yeah.
I drew like 3 or 4 new designs that I thought would be kind of cool for him. This is no tea, no shade to like any previous artist or designer or anything. I like some of his previous stuff, but I thought if this is his solo series where he kind of like he's been a superhero, but if this is his solo series, he needs to look to me like a superhero. And baggy cargo jeans don't say that to me. So I was like, he's gonna have a full suit. He's gonna, he'll have boots. He'll have like all the way down to his legs, and because his powers are magic, I was like, I don't care. His suit can change and adapt because of the magic. So like, if you want to see a dinosaur leg, you'll just see a dinosaur leg. It doesn't matter. That being said, I also knew that in a lot of the comics, he's wearing like a black shirt, right, that has like sleeves, and I thought he needs to have it be completely sleeveless so you can see his shoulder, because you should be able to see a dinosaur arm starting from there all the way down. And because he usually does arms and like a head, a lot. So I wanted you to be able to see more of the dinosaur that way. I tried to keep it within kind of the same color family. Like his stuff is usually black and teal or green. And I thought that if I looked at all the comics, the iconic thing about his costume that kind of stays with a lot of them is these like triangular points that have to be somewhat reminiscent of like dinosaur motif. So I wanted to still have that. And I wanted to include him like when he got dressed up in it saying like, I'm not sure about like the no arms thing. And Julian's like, look, you got to give the girls and the gays something. Just do it. So I had that be like the funny reason since Julian designed it, but it was for aesthetic choice of like, I don't want to see a sleeve on a pterodactyl wing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it should just look like a cool pterodactyl wing. So that's sort of what I did. And Anid really crushed it. I like sent in some sketches of what I thought, and he kind of like elevated it to another level. So I love what he did. I think it was really great.
Cousin, where's my super suit?
Yeah, where's my super suit? I originally had planned to introduce that suit, like that Julian would give it to him right before the Pride Festival, the Chicano Pride Festival in issue 4. And the editor was like, oh no, if this is a new suit and it's a series, you've got to introduce it a little bit sooner. And I was like, oh, all right, well. And I think I made him say something like I was saving this or, for later or whatever, but like now, just take it now. So he jumps into dinosaur world, like wearing that suit. And I said, I want his hair to be messy because, he's like not thinking about that.
Yeah, he's doing hero stuff. Who needs to care about their hair?
I mean, like, there's like a really good instance of when like a new suit gets revealed like really late into like a runner series, like end of Daredevil season 1. He doesn't get his like iconic suit until the very last episode of the first season.
Think about when like Wanda got her actual current Scarlet Witch suit. It was like after 4 movies and after 9 episodes of a TV series. So I think that's cool. It leads up to something, but yeah, I don't know. I like his new suit. I think it's fun.
Mm-hmm. And like they say in Invincible, when he was trying to get his suit, it's, with a lot of superheroes, you have to reach for iconic. You have to have that new piece that people could recognize and see and know who the character is.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's really true. And in a lot of the comics, Reptile had, when he wore that like black shirt with the teal spikes, you don't see his amulet. Like it's just he's wearing that shirt over it. And I felt like that should be an iconic piece of his costume, which is why he says that in the final issue that he's gonna be proud to be himself and he's gonna wear his amulet on the outside of the costume from now on. I don't know, because it's just a cool looking thing, and I was like, why not show it off?
Yeah, it feels like a good that felt like a really good piece to just add on the outside, just to like add more effect to that. After him being full dino, like him actually being proud of what he is and what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like it adds it, like having the amulet over it, like having never seen it, and then him finally adding it at the beginning, because at the start of the series you're kind of like, amulet is hiding somewhere, but where is it? And then like at the end when you finally see him put it on like over the suit, it just feels like an addition to him being proud of like being a hero and being part of what he is.
Yeah, I felt like in the first issue when the bad guy shows up and he's like, give me the amulet, like it would be weird to continually talk about this and then not see it. So that's why I have his shirt get ripped. So you can kind of see it there when they're like, that's what the focus of this conversation is. And then I think after they go to Dinosaur World and he's like depressed in bed, I told Enid, like, draw him without a shirt on, because I want in this conversation about his power for you to see where it's centralized. And then in the final issue when he has it on the outside, to me that's more of like a superhero with their symbol or their crest across their chest. Like Captain Marvel has that, like Superman, Batman have that. So I like that his suit's black and green, and then there's this like shock of red right in the middle. So hopefully that looks cool.
It looks fantastic, especially with the little triangle holder that it has. It's almost like his own little emblem, and then the gem.
Yeah, cool. That's what I wanted.
My question is, what do you think? I know since you started as an artist, you have a little bit more insight. But what do you think is important for like a writer to your artist's relationship, and what do you think is key to like maintaining like a positive like working relationship between those?
Right. So in all the independent graphic novels and in some comics for like Boom and whatnot that I wrote, I have a very technical script writing process, and my scripts look like page 2. This page has 6 panels on it. Panel 1 is a horizontal panel across the top. Panels 2 and 3 are side by side underneath. Like I explain the layout and then, explain what is in each panel in the dialogue. And when I do that, I know that it can feel really restrictive to me, to like an artist. Some artists love that. Like Claudia's like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I don't care. And she'll do it. But I always tell my editor and the artist when we start a project, that's just the best way I have to get it all out of my head. And if you guys think of a better way and the story still comes across, like maybe if we combine these 2 panels or whatever, like I don't care. Like as long as the story and the dialogue still is clear, then do what you want. Because the artist, in my opinion, should always feel like it's a collaborative team effort and not like they are my art monkey. Like,
Yeah.
draw this, nope, change this. So it gets hard when there's like, I know that I'm a person who has like a specific vision for some things that I want. Like I saw the exact way that he was going to transform in the final issue, that like his head would be up in the sky and his wings would be out. And so sometimes it's difficult when like you see something and you're like, oh wait, but can we change this? And it's great to have an editor who can sort of be the buffer for that and go, oh yeah, sure, yeah, I think that would be better. Or when you give a note like, hey, can we change this? They'll be like, that's really not that important. So I think that letting your artist know that you're up for them to, do things the way that they feel is best, I think is good. But when I started writing Reptile and I would write out like the panel layouts, my editor was like, yeah, don't do that. I was like, what? And she's like, just let the artist do it. I was like, oh, okay. And that was one of the things in script writing that takes me the longest, right? Is like figuring out the layout for these panels on the pages. And I thought, well, I sent her an email saying like, well, what if I know that like on a page, the last panel should be the biggest for like emotional impact or because it's going to have the most stuff in it. She's like, yeah, you can say that, but you don't need to explain like the layout for every panel. So I was like, wow, I mean, don't tell Marvel, not this isn't going on the internet. But I was like, oh, I'm going to write this much faster than I thought I was going to. And then I went and wrote a book for like it's the HQ series. So it's called Who Was the Voice of the People? It's Cesar Chavez. Yep. And this just came out, but it's a great book that I got the opportunity to work on. And when I started that one, my editor was like, no, I want you to write out the panel layouts. I was like, oh, okay. So it just depends, I think, on your editor and which way you're going to write. But I think when I give notes to an artist or send them to the editor to give to the artist, I do my best to also include what I think, not just like, oh, change this and change this, but to include like, when you did this, I freaked out. It looks awesome. This page looks incredible. You know, because we're artists and we're sensitive, and so we like to hear what people enjoy, you know, as well, and what we're doing that works. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
So I thought that both of the stories were amazing, but do you feel like you have any backlash or some sort of pullback when you try to do these changes, or do you feel like everybody's just trying to embrace and progress forward?
I don't really feel like I've received backlash for doing that. If I have, I don't know about it. I do my best not to read that stuff. But I think that it's a little hard to explain. But so I'm gay. I don't identify as a woman. I identify as a man. But quite often, I identify with and enjoy stories made for and about women more often than I do stories about men. I love a good, like, you know, action adventure, shit exploding, whatever, like, great. But I don't think that's all that men are, and I don't think women just like stuff that's like Legally Blonde, you know? Mm-hmm. So I just find, so Gregory Maguire, the author of Wicked, he was asked why he writes a lot about women. And he was like, well, they're more interesting than men, was his answer. And if we think about the most beloved story, most recognized story film in the entire world, it's The Wizard of Oz. And that's about a girl, you know? And so I think that anyone who's complaining about that, I don't know, like, obviously is someone who thinks they can't empathize with, sympathize with, relate to someone who's a woman. And like, we're all here because of women. I don't understand that. I don't understand that on a fundamental level. So like, I mean, I understand that. I don't understand why someone would like, I don't know, we should just remember that, I guess. But I think when, like I said before, when stories are about, for me, emotion and emotional connection, quite often it's women who are discussing that in film and TV more than, you know, typically men. There was a great thing that the director of Mad Max Fury Road said, was that he hired his wife to edit the movie, because when it's about these women who were these like brides of this like disgusting whatever guy, that he wanted someone to edit the movie who wouldn't edit it and sexualize these women. And these women are in skimpy clothes, they're in like wet clothes the whole time. But I think when you watch that movie, you're just like invested in the badass like story that's happening, and you're not necessarily, I mean, at least me, I know because I'm gay, so I'm not like, ooh, look at her. But still, I think that you're invested in that story. So, I mean, I can appreciate a beautiful woman, like, great. But yeah, I don't think I've received any kind of backlash about that. And like I said, when representation is really important to me, when the fastest growing demographic is young Latin women, then where are the stories for them? You know, that's important to me. So, you know, it's funny because I actually, when I got Reptile, I was like, can I convincingly write a straight boy? Was like my concern.
It was great. It felt like the character was, because also something I noticed a lot with Marvel, some writers tend to put too much of who they are in the main character, and it switches the character completely. For example, Novar, in his first appearance, he's supposed to be this assholey troll character who doesn't like humanity because they killed most of his people in his ship.
Yeah.
But later on, he starts to sympathize and understand them more after he saved them. But then in Young Avengers, he's this dumb character who just does whatever he wants, and he's completely changed from the original. But then he comes again in Guardians of the Galaxy, and we see back that original sort of, he's smart, he's someone that understands, he was hurt, so he has that sort of pain in him. And with Reptile, it almost felt like he didn't change at all. It was the same character, which I loved. It was, you didn't change who he was, you changed what happened around him. And I think that should be key to how comics should be written. And I definitely didn't feel any change with his own personal character in a bad way.
That's good. I think it's sometimes difficult because, you know, like Hotel Dare Lifetime Passes are my creation. They're characters I made up. And if another book was going to be done, like another volume in that series or whatever, then it would come from me. But the nature of like superhero characters for Marvel or DC is that they're going to be written by a lot of different people, right? Like, that was hard for me to realize, was like, oh, I'm creating Julian and Eva. I'm creating Tia Glow. I created this villain. He sort of appeared in a comic in the 60s. I'll explain later. Or 70s. But I was like, other people are going to write these characters. And so that's an interesting thing that actually happened when we were working on the book, was that in the third issue, Julian is telling Beto a story about like when he came out and how he and his mom went to therapy. And my editor was like, do you want to be specific and say that have Julian say when I came out as gay? And I was like, well, not really. Like, don't we just kind of know? Like, don't you get it? Like, you know, if you read the book, you kind of get it. And she said, sure. But if you don't establish that now, then a different writer later could come in and be like, oh, well, he never said he was gay, so I'm going to make him bi, or I'm going to make him trans, or I'm going to make him whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm not against that, but yeah, this is the character I made up, and I see him a specific way, so yeah, let's just say that he's gay in this book. And it was really eye-opening to me to think that, like, that was one of the times where I indulged myself a little bit in, like, thinking about the legacy, maybe, of some of these characters, was I was like, well, what's going to happen to Eva in another 10 years, you know? And she's already been written now by Scotty Young, drawn by Humberto Ramos and like 3 different artists. So yeah, it was a really interesting thing to sort of be a part of. But yeah, anyway, what I was saying about that villain is that the Hag of the Pits is a character that was created by like Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, like, you know, back in the day, and we saw them in Dinosaur World. You saw in that comic that she had this like ape-like son. Yeah. But you see him in like 2 panels, but you know they don't interact much. You don't hear his name. So I was like, oh, well, this could either be another son, or it could be like him, and we just find out who he is now and his name and all that. But yeah, I kind of like that connection too, because the Hag, the Hag isn't a character I created, but I was like, this is a monkey lady, old witch, cave person, magician. Like, she's cool. Like, why aren't they using that? So I was like, can I use her? And they said, sure. But I mean, to me, it felt logical. Like, that Julian's like, well, okay, who made your amulet then? We need to know more about it. So it felt
like a true origin, because we didn't know much about Reptile beforehand. So you were like, you know what? Let's give him an actual story, and let's make sure people love it. And I definitely did.
When I read all of the previous Reptile comics, I was like, I had to think really hard, again, when we were talking about writing and like what kind of pulls you in and what are some good writing tips and stuff. I think you have to think about what a character's wants and needs are, and then you put obstacles in their way from getting that thing for the whole story. So that's very prevalent in like Disney movies, right? Or in musicals. Usually there's like a song where it's called an I Want song, and someone sits down and sings about what they want or what their dreams are, and then the story is about getting that. And so when I read all of the previous comics, I was like, if this were me, I'd be like, where the F are my parents? Like, they disappeared. Like, has he searched for them? There was a comic where Kazar was like, if you want to search for your parents, I'll help you. And that's how it ended. So I was like, okay, well, I would be like, where are they?
Yeah.
So that to me was like, all right, there's a family connection here now. And the only other family member we'd seen for him was his grandpa. And we see him playing like Call of Duty.
Yeah, Papa
And-
Lake is the goat.
Yeah. And then so he hadn't been named, so I was like, I'm gonna give him a name. And then I had him playing Skyrim in Reptile, and Beto's like, what happened to Call of Duty? And he's like, this is more fun. It's got magic, so it's more fun. You can kind of do whatever. And that was sort of a nod to like Reptile's powers. You know, like it's magic, so it's fun. But I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, and so I thought, well, what does he want most in the world? He probably wants to know what happened to his parents. And then I create a villain who knows exactly where they are. And he's like, you're going to give me your amulet because I know where your parents are. And then they fight for the rest of the series. So with comics, you have to sort of think about a reveal on a page turn. You have to think about how, like, when I end issue 1, if I want people to come back for issue 2, then I've got to end it on like a cliffhanger or something that's going to pull people back. So that's how I ended that first issue, was that guy saying like, you'll give me the amulet, you'll do it willingly because I know where your parents are. So yeah, I think any good villain is good if they are an expert at exploiting the hero's greatest weakness. And that's why like the Dark Knight really works. That's why I think people liked it, because the Joker was like Batman's, one of his weaknesses is he like won't kill anyone. He can't do it. And the Joker over and over in that movie is like, kill me. Come on, do it.
And you save all these people. Just kill me right here, right now. One for the life of many, and he just couldn't.
Yeah. And so I did that, I think, hopefully successfully in Hotel Dare 2, where I won't ruin it for you since you haven't finished it.
Yeah.
But the villain becomes someone who has exactly what the Mama Lupe wants, or knows where it is.
Oh,
anyway.
I sort of know, because I'm like more than halfway there, so I sort of know what you're implying. So I'll get there, because so far I'm towards where Sonny reveals who he really is. So Mama Lupe already explained.
I think you're like 2 pages away there.
Yeah. So what's it called? So, yeah, because Sonny, I was liking Sonny at first, but then he revealed who he is, so I have no idea what happens next.
Let's see. I'm taking a look real quick because now I'm curious. Yeah. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So yeah, so Sonny just reveals who he is. You're like 1 page away, 2 pages away.
Oh,
but
I'll get there.
But yeah, Hotel Dare is one of my favorite things I've written. I would love to do a couple more volumes of it. I think that I pitched it like when I talked about pitching it. And talking about what the story was and what it was really about. A huge aspect of it was, like, where is Harry Potter or Star Trek for Mexicans? You know, and all of our modern fantasy is European in its visual language. So that's like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter. It all looks like friggin' England, right? So by default, like, have you guys seen Maya and the Three? On Netflix, go watch Maya and the Three. It's like a 9-hour it's 9 episodes, but it's like, it's a Mesoamerican inspired fantasy adventure, and it's incredible. And that's what I wanted to do with Hotel Dare, because by default, having a castle look like a pyramid and having a dragon look like a Quetzalcoatl, and like, doesn't that make it different already?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do that. But hopefully I succeeded. I don't know. I just felt like we deserve to have fantasy adventure stories too. And it's funny because Maya and the Three is very visually inspired by Mexico, and people are like, why are they speaking Spanish in this? Oh, the Aztecs didn't do that. And I was like, did they say they're in the Aztec Empire? No, they said this is the Kingdom of Tekka. Like, that would be like being mad that there's dragons in Game of Thrones. Like, oh, did England really have dragons though? Like, it's a fantasy.
Yeah,
like, who
it's
cares?
supposed to be its own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, our fantasy gets to be fun too. So like, who cares?
Yeah, and the biggest thing about fantasy books, films, and everything is that magic doesn't really need a story. Magic is just this outside force that certain amount of people could use, and they could do whatever their hearts desire.
Yeah. And magic's fun because it's something that comes from inside of you, right? As opposed to like an outside source. So there's a lot of emotional investment in like someone who can do magic really well, I guess.
Honestly, if Hotel Dare ever becomes a series or anything like that, please put me in there. I would. I so far I am loving the story. It's just college complications with a lot of work that I haven't been able to finish it, but I've loved how Brudha came to be, and I obviously, as someone who speaks Spanish, I know Brudha means bruja, which is witch. So for me, it was instantly easy to. But
all these white old crusty wizards don't know what that means.
They don't know exactly, and I'm like, oh, it's bruja. That's what she meant. Yeah. So it was. I loved it. I want to. Other than psychology, I also want to be involved in acting. So any of these stories that hopefully somehow we could get to come to life, I would 100% give you all of my effort, all at your service.
I would love if something of mine were adapted into something. Usually when that happens, unless you're like someone with a lot of influence and you've made a company a crap ton of money, they kind of like don't always involve you. So we'll see. If I have any say, I'll let you know.
I think something I want to touch on is because I saw the chat that you and Grim were having yesterday about our tier list video that we posted a couple weeks ago, and talking about, you know, Shang-Chi versus Spider-Man, and I kind of want to dive right into it because, you know, me and Lewis, we're big Spider-Man fanboys. It's just who we are. It's in our blood. But I feel like when you talk about, like, because when I watched Shang-Chi, I had no expectation for it because this was the first time I ever saw this character ever. And I think I love that because when you go into something like Reptile, when I first started reading it, and you have no expectation of it, it's a clear slate. You don't have a bias. You don't have anything. I think that's what makes those series great. My question to you is that what are some of the like more theatrical and like the series releases from, it could be like Marvel, DC, whatever, that you've been really enjoying yourself?
Oh wow. I'm kind of someone who likes it all, but I thought Wanda Vision was really crazy and cool. I loved that series quite a bit. And I think it's funny in the trailer for Multiverse of Madness where she tells him like, oh, you like F things up and it's cool. Like I do it and I'm a villain. Like, all right, whatever. But I also thought that Loki was really cool. And I didn't have any expectations for that series, but I was like, this is kind of neat. I'm also, I don't know if it's controversial here, but I loved Black Widow. I thought it had some of the best action scenes that I'd seen in a while.
To me, it felt more like a comedy. I loved the comedy, especially with Red Guardian. I thought he was hilarious.
He was great in it, yeah.
For me, he was what made the film because I laughed. I don't know what it was, but every time, yeah, it might be inside I'm a dad, but every time he said something, I just couldn't like hold my laugh.
Yeah, he was great in it. I also liked Hawkeye a lot. I mean, I watched it around Christmas, and it was kind of like the perfect thing to,
that's
once a week.
Better.
Yeah, so those are some of the ones that I really enjoyed recently. I loved Shang-Chi. It was one of the only movies I've seen in a theater in the past 2 years. That and Spider-Man, I think, are the two main movies I saw. But yeah, I don't know. I do like all of it. I'm excited for Miss Marvel. I think that looks really fun. What are the other ones that are coming out soon?
Coming out in
oh my god!
Wednesday, yeah, it comes out on Wednesday.
I'm there. Anything Oscar Isaac does. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Man, Oscar Isaac's such a good actor. Goddamn.
Oh yeah,
he is.
So,
he is.
I can't wait for that. That's cool. I'm gonna definitely watch that when it comes out.
Real quick note, I just wish they didn't ruin him in the Star Wars trilogy because he would have been a perfect Han Solo sort of side character.
He was
right?
He was Poe Cameron.
That's a whole can of worms that I don't think we need to open up right now. Sorry about Star Wars. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about what do you think of like the Miss Marvel series, like about the Miss Marvel series coming out? Like, do you Like, how do you feel about them changing her powers?
So I don't like it, but I understand why they would do it. I think that the excuse that, like, well, we want to save that for Mr. Fantastic is kind of weak. I also think that if you, like, again, no shade to, like, the Fantastic Four movies, but I don't think that that power that Reed Richards has is a very cool looking power. Like, it kind of looks funny. So I think that there are adjustments that get made when things have to be explained a different way. So, like, Inhumans didn't do great for Marvel, right? Like the show. So they didn't introduce
about it.
Right. So they didn't introduce Inhumans. That's how she gets her powers in the comics. It's from the Terrigen Mist that the Inhumans, you know, whatever. So I think that likely because her powers look like they're more, she says they're like cosmic in the trailer, that they're probably doing this to have them align a bit more with like Captain Marvel. So I don't know. Her powers basically look like Purple Lantern, right?
Yeah, we all said the same thing.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
it's just ruins that whole she wants to be Captain Marvel, so she had the power to change herself. Now we don't get to see that. Now she just she
I
can't
love
really.
that they made that she has like her like homemade Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
That was so cute. I was like,
Yeah, that was adorable.
Yeah, that's really
And
cool.
the helmet's funny.
the helmet is the best part.
It feels weird to me when someone's like, okay, well, what about Zoe Saldana and Salma Hayek and Oscar Isaac? I'm like, they are not playing Latinos
Yeah,
in these
exactly.
stories. They're
Zoe,
playing aliens and, you know.
yeah, Zoe's a green alien adopted by Thanos. Oscar Isaac, he's not even playing a Hispanic role. He's just
That we
American.
know. Who
Yeah.
maybe he is and he doesn't remember.
Maybe.
But like, Salma is like this eternal.
Yeah.
There's not a superhero that's like,
Openly Hispanic. That,
Yes,
That you could
and-
hear them say something in Spanish when they get hit. You don't hear like, rayos, something like that.
yeah, right. Or that there's just that they're from Latin America.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway. Who knows when we'll get one.
Yeah. Again, I'm hoping because they're sort of working again with trying to do something with the Agents of Shield. They brought it to Disney Plus. They're working on Daredevil again. Maybe we'll see Robbie Reyes appear again.
Yeah, they
And-
left his story in Agents of Shield very mysterious. It's like he literally just goes away in a like at the end of season 4, he like just goes away in a portal.
Yep,
And you never
so-
see him again. And like a Doctor Strange portal too.
So
Like,
he
and
could
you
come
never see him
back.
again.
Yeah, we could see him riding his Dodge Charger again.
I find
Actually, I'm pretty sure that got blown up.
I find
It
so
did?
weird that like Sam.
I'm
is
pretty sure it got
actually
blown up, yeah.
Not the Nova that's like the center. I remember growing up, Sam was like the Nova that I watched.
Buckethead.
Yeah, me too.
You had him in Ultimate Spider-Man and like that like young Avengers type style team of like, I believe it's White Tiger, Luke Cage, him, and Iron Fist,
And yeah.
Yeah.
and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I loved him. It's like this snarky kid who's like, you know, still has to learn how to grow up, and it's like those stories are great. And also, I just want to see, because a lot of people are just thinking like, oh, you know, we can get like a Young Avengers soon, and I would be so down for that. Having a Young Avengers team when we already had like the core one already, it would be pretty sick.
So do you think that in Multiverse of Madness, Wanda will find her boys and that they will be aged up a little bit?
So
Yeah.
Can I? All right. So when we watched it, because we watched it together, there's a scene towards the end of the last episode where she has a book and she's just meditating and searching for something, and then she opens her eyes and you could see that she found something. And I told them she found the kids and they have officially been reborn, because that's how it happens in the comics. They're reborn into a different family. And she has officially found them, and hopefully in Multiverse of Madness, we see her already with them, taking care of them, or like observing them from afar.
Or because it's the multiverse, they're just older and she found them.
Yeah, and she
You know, too,
she
like, who knows?
She finds them again. Yeah.
I
I thought that you kind of heard their voices at the end of
Yeah.
WandaVision.
Mhm.
So
I had this theory where it's just like, because I always thought of like because what they're doing is like there's like a scene where you could like see in their eyes like there's like a cage and there's like this little research thing. always thought that it was like sort of like this anomaly gathering research thing, and they probably just snagged up the kids because they're like, oh, you're not supposed to happen, and it's like studying, testing them, and stories do this all the time where like time works differently in sort of places, so it could like have this sort of thing where like, oh, in this place they age rapidly because like in Dragon Ball they have the hyperbolic time chamber where like 1 day is 1 year. So something like that could happen, or it's just like a different version of her kids, and she's just gonna, no matter what she wants her kids back.
Or do you think
Pretty
they
sure it
cast
was
her pretty young because by the time they actually make a Young Avengers, those kids will be like 16 or 17?
That's a good point. That's a good.
I mean, like America Chavez, they cast pretty young.
Yeah, I'm pretty
you
sure
know,
she's like
in this
18.
movie.
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
we get to see her grow, and like sort of with the Tom Holland, how we've seen him grow a little with the character and age. So
Yeah,
He still looks like a baby though, to be real.
yeah, kind of.
I'm pretty sure it was already confirmed though that, like, not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure it was leaked that they were looking for casting for like characters that look like Wanda's children, like
Oh,
around that age group. I think that was like leaked a year ago or something. That they
Yeah.
were looking for that they were searching for casting for that.
It was
so I'm
mostly
pretty
for
sure-
Wiccan. It was
Yeah.
we saw like an actor like performing for Wiccan. I think that's like the leak that we heard about.
it's like,
Yeah, like, who's in it
15 to 19-year-old Twinkie, like
I mean-
emo boy.
I just want to see a good like speedster like film adaptation, to be quite honest.
I
'Cause
mean,
there's not a like, you have the Flash TV show, but like there's not like a good like movie version of a speedster besides the Eternals. I forgot.
Makari.
Alright.
Makari's still alive, so maybe we'll see more of her.
Hopefully we see her.
Hopefully,
again.
yeah, because she's her and the others, I believe, is Tina, Makari, Droid, and who's
That's
the
it.
other?
was
That's it. And
That
so
was
those three are alive, so we could still see them, get that redeeming qualities and see Makari be more of a speedster. And there's no more Thanos, so who cares? They can have as many speedsters as they want.
It's funny how the only thing that's halfway decent in those X-Men movies are the scenes with Quicksilver.
Every time I bring them up, I'm just like, man, Quicksilver really steals the show, and like every time he shows up, and they keep redoing it. Like I think they did the first time they did it, like, oh, that was pretty cool, and then with the
Black
Xavier's Mansion, they're just like, all right, we're just gonna do it again.
I will say
Good, though.
that's the one, not the one thing. That's one thing that I did enjoy about the new Batman movie is that I'm like, oh, thank God we don't need to see like this little kid leaving the theater with his parents in an alley. The pearls get, the parents get shot. I was like, we all know friggin' Batman. We know the story. So like, why not just make an X-Men movie? Where like, we all know that. I mean, maybe not all of us, but unless they did some sort of TV series where like it's Professor Xavier in the 60s looking for the X-Men and like gathering them all up episode by episode, that'd be fun. But like, I don't think if they make a movie, we don't need like some huge, like, I don't know, we don't need some explanation. Like, just have a title card screen that says mutation. Some people have powers. The X-Men are a team who fight together. But like, that's it. Like, that's all you need. I don't know. Who
No,
knows?
you could just do what they did in like First Class, and like you can start with like a series of them just recruiting people.
Yeah.
And that would be cool. I would picture it because when I watched First Class, I'm like, this is like if it's like Mutants Got Talent. This is basically
Yeah.
what it is. It's great.
Who gets the golden buzzer?
The golden buzzer is who doesn't get killed by Magneto at the end of the movie.
That's right. There you go.
Oh, but yeah, Jens, is there anything else you wanna mention? You wanna bring up real fast?
So, other than Hotel Dare, is there anything else you're working on right now that I should be in the lookout for?
And tell us where we can follow you as well.
Yeah, I released 3 books last year, so I'm sort of in that hiatus point where I have written another book. It hasn't been announced yet, so I can't say what it is. And I'm pitching 2 books right now. So the answer is check out my stuff from last year. That would be Lifetime Passes, Reptile, and Who Was the Voice of the People, Cesar Chavez. But other than that, you can find me online on Instagram and Twitter at Terry Blas, and that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to our show. For me, this was super special. I've been just waiting for this moment for for what seems like an eternity, and now that I have it in front of me, it's incredible.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you for having me.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much. Everyone at home, thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And we see you all next time in another Showtime Nerds video. Peace out.
Peace out.
Bye.